There's probably three things I've learned. One of the top three would probably be learning how to sell, how to help people get what they want and give people what they need to help them achieve what they want. And that's just what sales is. So I think there's a big need for people to learn how to negotiate, how to communicate more effectively. And I think business is better, life is better when you do that.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share great conversations with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how on where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits that this has created. You see, the truth is that everyone invests. Every minute of every day, we're investing our time, our skills, our energy and our money in something. Some of us are investing consciously, some unconsciously, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, and sometimes for no impact. Get Invested will help you to start living by design, not by default. I'm going to help you to make it happen, not let it happen. You'll hear the top tips on how you can live with conscious intent so that you can live more, work less, and leave a living legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living your dream, not someone else's. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at bushymartin.com.au/get invested. Thanks for listening, and now let's get invested. Hi Freedom Fighters. How do you achieve anything in life when it comes to involving or relying on others? How do we get others to do something? By communicating, negotiating, influencing, persuading, convincing, and committing them to your way of thinking. There's no rocket science here. Everything you do in human interactions revolves around your ability to communicate with and to influence others. And how do you achieve this? Through your selling and sales skills. Ouch, I hear you think. I've just heard a lot of you recall when I said that. Why? Because the words selling and sales are often seen and perceived as dirty words, as if it's something offensive, low-life, manipulative, and disgusting. And if this is what you think, then so shall it be, and results in all aspects of your life will reflect this. I'll go as far as saying that your selling skills, that is your ability to communicate, negotiate, influence, and commit the thoughts and behaviour of others, will determine your relationship success in absolutely every aspect of your life, whether it be with your partner, your kids, other family, friends, work colleagues, clients, customers, and the community at large. So unless you're going to go solo and become like Tom Hanks on Castaway and get yourself lost on a remote island for the rest of your life, selling and sales skills will be absolutely fundamental and critical to your achievement, to your happiness, and your overall fulfillment. Now, you're not alone here. When I used to think about sales many years ago, I would think about a sleazy car salesman smelling like tobacco and pushing a beat-up used car on me that I didn't want or need. But when I thought about what sales meant to me in my everyday life, I realised that I needed to reframe my attitude towards sales and selling. And it's actually quite a simple mindset shift. Sales is not about pushing something onto someone that they don't need, because, as you'll find out from today's guest, it's about how to help people get what they want and give people what they need to help them achieve what they want. It's as simple as that. Now, our guest Petar Lackovic is often referred to as the $2 billion man. He's the current Director of Sales and Entrepreneurship at the Entourage, and he's helped thousands of intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs achieve life-changing results. And Sonia and I are amongst those. And I know that this is the case because we're one of them. His ability to simply explain and quickly inculcate actionable habits that will transform your relationships is absolutely second to none. I would go as far as saying that he's the pre-eminent master of all things sales here in Australia. So, in this really high-energy, jam-packed episode, Petar reveals the secrets to selling and how to reframe your thinking to transform your results in all aspects of your life. You'll learn what to do if you don't like where you are, What does it mean to be a replication person? And what's the benefit of everything being figureoutable? What has burning the boats got to do with success? And the importance of obstacles to your progress. Now, this is an absolutely inspirational conversation that you just can't afford to miss. So please enjoy Petar Lackovic. Hi, Freedom Fighters. Now, one of the joys of hosting a podcast is that I get to hang out with the very few people that I truly admire and respect. Those who've made a big impact on my business and my life personally. And today, guys, it's right up there. In my opinion, today's guest is the pre-eminent master for all things sales in Australia. We affectionately refer to him as Petar Lackovic because he's always over-delivering, but he goes by the name Petar Lackovic. So can't wait to get invested, Pete. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, mate. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to this session together.
Likewise, mate. It's been too long between drinks, but really looking to deep dive because I genuinely mean that you've had a massive impact on myself and Sonia and what we're doing in the business, and that's been of massive benefit to the team and the people that we work with. So having the opportunity to spend some time with you, mate, is sensational.
No, that's very kind, thank you. I've enjoyed watching your journey, what you're doing. So when you asked me to be on this show, I jumped at it with both hands.
Thanks, mate. Now, for those who don't know you, and most do, but for those who don't, can you give us a rundown on what you do and why, please, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a journey, but I'll give you a Reader's Digest version of where I am today. So I'm a shareholder investor, and I head up entrepreneur development for the Entourage. So the Entourage is Australia's largest training and education institution for entrepreneurs and innovators. We work with kind of six-figure business owners who want to go to 7 and seven-figure business owners who want to go to 8, and often some entrepreneurs within businesses who want to really upskill themselves. So, my role right now is really helping drive our member success, do some strategic exec stuff. I work predominantly on forward-facing stuff, a lot of public speaking, events, and internally with our members, helping them with the strategies necessary to really get the business from where it is to where they really want to be. So that's kind of what I'm doing that now, and I'm actually doing that 3 days a week. Stepped back in December, moved back to my roots in Perth. So I left here 21 years ago this year to move to the eastern states to kind of be a small fish in a big pond. Being a bigger fish in a small pond in Perth, that was the goal for me. So set up some businesses and now have a really strong team, and I've got a young family now and want to really bring that back to Perth to have a bit more family time. So pull back to 3 days a week now from Perth here, and on the side hustle, because doing nothing 2 days a week gets a bit boring. So building up some very specific sales-specific programs for people inside businesses and business owners at the same time. So that's kind of me at the current state of play. Fantastic,
man. And I'll sort of come back to that sort of lifestyle transition a bit later. But just so that we can get a sense of your journey so far, mate, can you wind us right back and take us through what you've invested your time, money and energy in, and why to get to where you are now, please, buddy?
Yeah, definitely. I don't have, you probably see on Facebook or Instagram or any type of marketing, there's the hard luck story of I was destitute, poor upbringing, whatever, and then found the golden bullet and went out and created it and started a business. I don't have a poor me story.
Hallelujah.
I felt I've been quite fortunate. I come from European parents who came out here with a suitcase and couldn't speak English and wanted to provide the best for their family. So mum and dad had a really amazing work ethic. So I kind of grew up playing sport. Like my dad used to coach a local soccer club, and I used to go down there as a 4.5, 5-year-old and kick around, and started playing from there. So all I've ever known from a youngster is to have a coach. I played soccer when I was from 4.5. Then we did swimming from when I was 5, and competition swimming at 7. Then we went into playing tennis and little athletics, and I was playing 5 or 6 sports at once, and I've always had a coach, and that's all I've ever known. So I my first business coach would have been parents, like, working for a European family, so to speak, or from where to say a WOG family. Mum and dad. Dad used to drive cement trucks at day and taxis at night. Is the only things you really didn't need a qualification for except for a license. Yeah. Mum was working in an accountancy practice as a receptionist there, and my grandmother came out from former Yugoslavia when I was 2 days before I was born. So she pretty much helped raise me while Mum and Dad worked. And then when I was 8, they bought typical WOG business, the local deli. They bought a delicatessen. So I worked in there from the age of 8. And there was no such thing as pocket money because, when you work for a European family, it's like I put a roof over your head, I put food on the table, I put clothes on your back, you will work for me. Today we call that child labour. Back then we called it love. So I grew up kind of working in Mum and Dad's business, and it was the best induction I've probably ever had because through osmosis, I learnt a majority of who I am and what I've become today kind of shaped me from then. The first thing was the work ethic. Yeah. I didn't have a lot of weekends. We always spent time in the deli. I never had both parents at a school assembly or a sporting event because one was always working in the shop. Yeah. And that's kind of shaped of the type of parent that I am today, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. So I kind of grew up in Mum and Dad's business and wasn't getting paid. To the age of 15, I thought I need to get some pocket money here. So now we're talking, mid-80s, so cassette tapes, and I got my first Walkman and wanted to start buying, my own records and all that type of stuff. So got a job at the local deli down the road where they could pay me money for doing what I was doing for free for Mum and Dad. So I did that a couple of days a week after school, and that was kind of my first working job that was paid. Yep. And then I went into I was the first person in my family to get into university in the history of the Lackovic heritage to get into university. I think as a parent you only want for your children what you never had, and what my parents never had was an education. So I think my dad thought if I get my son in uni, I've done my job, he's safe. Yeah. So, I held that mantle, but then 2 years later, I was the first one in history to drop out of university. So I've kind of not the proudest moment, from the proudest moment to the not the proudest moment.
Mate, jumping in there, I heard along the grapevine that one of the other really interesting stories, which is probably a really good example of your early sales prowess, is that you actually talked the uni into taking you on a performance basis. Can you share that story with us, please?
You've done some good research, buddy. Honestly, I don't even know if my parents know this story. I think I've shared it once or twice only. So I failed Year 12. I didn't get into uni. So I went back and repeated Year 12 again and failed the second time. Didn't get in the second time. And I looked at the results, and I couldn't in my heart tell my dad that I didn't get into uni again. And it was one of these things, right? Why was he going to uni? Because that's what you were supposed to do. Yeah. You're supposed to go to kindergarten, pre-primary, primary school, high school, go to uni, get an entry-level job, and then work your way out from the bottom and supposedly retire on some sort of superannuation that's going to make you wealthy for the rest of your life. And I just didn't agree with that type of model. I went to uni because I got in, and I didn't get in, and I thought my only other avenue was I've got to get in. So I made an appointment to see the dean at the university and sold myself into university. He set a bar: if I hit these grades in the first semester, then he'll give me another 6-month extension, and after year 1, if I hit that, then he'll let me in. You're right. I did sell myself into university, and then I came back and said, "Dad, I got in." I didn't tell him I negotiated my way in. I told him I passed and I got in, because once you say you're in, the score is irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how I got into there, and then I just found that I wasn't in love with it. I wasn't doing what I was passionate about. I was attending because I was supposed to go. I was spending more time playing sport than I was doing classes and studying, and I was scraping by just to do enough to get in. And then it just wasn't me. So I dropped out, and I got a job working in a gym. I went for an interview for a girlfriend at the time.
Hey, okay. Well, tell me about that conversation with Dad, mate, because that would have been an interesting one, I reckon, when you came home and said, "Dad, it's not for me. I'm out of here." How did that go?
I don't know if this is going to really connect with you or not, but I didn't tell him. I pretended to go to uni.
Love it.
Until I got a job and was starting to become successful. So I got a job in sales in a health club. I went for a job for a girlfriend at the time, and they offered me the job. I went to find out some information for her, and they offered me the job. So I took it. And then after 2.5 weeks, they made me the sales manager. And after 2 weeks later, so 4 weeks after starting, I was managing a health club.
Meteoric.
And once I became a manager, I thought this is good enough to tell mum and dad I've dropped out of uni to manage a business.
Yes.
Yes. And it wasn't until then that's when I said I'm going to do.
Gotcha.
And I didn't defer. I dropped out.
Yeah.
For me, it was burning the boats. I'm either going to commit or I'm not. If I had a fallback, then I don't think I would have played hard. And it's kind of one of the philosophies, I think, anywhere in my life where I've had success, I've played hard. Any times where I've had a failure in my life or a stumbling block, it's when I haven't played all in. I haven't committed. I haven't gone all out. I've had the safety net. And when you have a safety net, you play with a safety net. When you don't have a safety net, then you play full out and you just make it happen.
Yeah.
So very quickly I raised the ranks, and we had 3 health clubs. We grew to a chain of 5, and I became an area manager. Then they wanted to give me a piece of the business, make me general manager, and we quickly grew. Once I had invested interest in the business, I quickly grew up to a chain of 15 health clubs.
Wow.
The time it took us to get to 4, it took me half the time to get it to 15 from 4 than it did to get to 4. Because once we had the systems and the structures and the processes, it was easily to replicate success. My theory in life is if anyone can do something once, you just got to reverse engineer how and do it again. There's a formula to everything in life. Nothing's a fluke, nothing's a coincidence. You just got to, everything's figureoutable. So that's what I did and became successful in that area. And then in 1998, I had a bit of a fallout with the other business owners. They were doing some dodgy things that I didn't agree with philosophy-wise and vision-wise and integrity-wise. So I packed up and moved to Melbourne to start my own consultancy business and coach other people how to run successful fitness and health and wellness clubs.
Okay,
and that's kind of how that journey started.
Okay, we'll park it there very quickly because I'm really interested for you to share with us, obviously a very meteoric rise with that first job, 3 weeks to be managing and then taking on a very serious role. What was it that you feel stood out for you, and what were they picking up and say, wow, we really need to give this guy plenty of rope? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, if I look back, and I have looked back at this, because what I love to look at is I'm a replication person. I pride myself on being able to create a process and a system for almost anything when it comes to business. So for me, it's like, why was I successful? How do I replicate that? And predominantly around sales, negotiations, marketing, leadership is kind of my sweet spot that I obsess about. And for me, it all came down to I think my parents. Like when I worked for that business, I didn't know anything else but to run the business like it's my business. Yeah. I never had an employee mentality, and I've never had an employee mentality. Even when I got my first full-time job at 15 at Lakewood Deli, the first weekend I was there, I restructured the whole freezer, where the cool room, where the drinks were behind the fridge that you see in a shop, right? Because functionally it just wasn't working. It was hard. You had to lift crates up, and I'd set it up like my dad had set it up in our shop. And when the owner came in, he was like, holy crap, like this is so much more functional, it's more efficient, it's easier, there's so much more room out here, it looks better, and visually it was more appealing, and sales went up, and like, so I always did things like it was my business. So in this job, I remember the one day which it changed, where it became apparent to me why I was different, is that I was always challenging status quo, and I was always challenging what was done. I never accepted what we did. I always thought, what can we do to make it better? Where I think people have an acceptance mentality, like this is the way it's always been done, this is the way it always happens. So I remember we had a meeting every Tuesday. We'd have a meeting with all the managers, the area managers, and the sales director and the owners. And I noticed in the club that I was managing, there was a cleaner, and he was a maintenance guy more than a cleaner. Okay. And he'd come in, then he'd go out, and I wouldn't see him for an hour, and he'd come back, and I noticed the things I wanted him to fix in the equipment wasn't done effectively, efficiently in the time frames. So I was like, what does this guy do? Where is he? What clubs is he going to? There was no record keeping, there's no structure. I was in the meeting, I said, the maintenance guys, everyone else have an issue with him? And they all looked at me, and I went, like, because there's no logbook. He comes in, he goes, he's never here. There's things aren't done, things are always broken, like members are complaining, it's affecting the conversion rates, it's affecting retention, it's affecting everything. Like, yeah. And everyone's like, and anyway, they created a logbook at the end of that meeting to register when he logs in, when he logs out. After the meeting, my area manager said, what are you doing? And I went, what do you mean? He goes, in these meetings, you come, Sean, the sales director, he talks, the other owner talks, we set the targets, and then we leave. Like, you're pretty much, do you know who the maintenance guy is? I went, no. He goes, it's Sean's brother. I went, well, I don't know who he is. I just know he's not doing a bloody good job, and it's affecting my P&L statements and the profit and loss statements of the business.
Yep.
So anyway, I think the fact that I spoke out and ran the business like it was mine and made decisions like it was mine, it didn't matter who was there, I think that caught the eye of the business owners. So when it became the sales manager left, who's going to be in sales? Well, I was number one sales, so I went in that. The manager left, which club had the best sales? Who was the best leader? Pete. So we'll put Pete in that. Didn't matter, they didn't have experience or anything like that. It was just, I think, I wasn't accepting the state. I wasn't expecting the state of play, whether it be marketing or sales or customer service or anything. So I think the key thing for me was kind of trusting my instinct, trusting my intuition, doing what I thought was best, and not getting stuck and pigeonholed in this is how we do things. So become part of the production line.
Yeah. No, that always questioning mentality. How can we be doing things better? It's a rarity. Yeah,
and just trusting myself, and that led me to where I was. I mean, when I decided to leave, I literally cold called a health facility in Melbourne over the phone and sold myself over the phone to get a consulting gig. And once I got that gig, then I packed up and I left. You know, I literally just slept on, and this is kind of taking. Sometimes you got to take one step back to take two steps forward and let ego out of the way. But, you know, I told mum and dad I'm looking at moving, and I had a property at the time which mum and dad co-signed for. I was young in my 20s and I was earning good money, but I had nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
My mates loved me because I'd pay for all the drinks on the weekends because I had a good job that was paying well, and they were either at uni, still struggling through 3, 4 or 5 years of uni or part-time work.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was running a chain of health clubs, but I had nothing to show for it. So Dad made me buy a property, and he co-signed for it, and I said I need to reduce my payments so I can move to Melbourne, and he goes no. And I think it was just him not wanting me to fail. You know, he wanted to protect. So when he said no, I said, well, I'll do it anyway. So I literally slept on a couch of a friend of mine who was one of my employees at the gym. He moved over 6 months earlier with his partner at the time, and I slept on his couch while I set up my consulting and coaching business.
Yeah, love it. Was it the old vision and values exercise that came adrift, and the reason why you decided it was time for you to move on? Was that the recognition, do you think? My growth had stopped. I had a barrier. Like, my alignment with their values and my values were not the same. Yeah.
And they were making decisions because of money, and I never made decisions because of money, because that I was successful with money.
Yeah.
And I think if I even look back in my time in investing in properties and all sorts of stuff, and I've done it for money and a financial return and not for a love and a passion, and really got invested in it, you know, I've either made money or I've lost money. Like, I bought a property because I wanted to have something that would be good to have as an asset, and that one, you know, I sold it and made over double what I made in a very short period of time. Then another investment opportunity I did nearly killed me because I didn't treat it the same way. So I think for me the decision to move was because it wasn't aligned with my values. I knew what I was worth. I knew what I wanted to do, and I wasn't achieving. And I thought, I've got to change. I've got to do something different. And there was an opportunity. So I'm the type of person that said, let's do it. And I just did. And I packed up and I left and slept on a couch for a couple of months while I set myself up and just proved to myself that I could do it. And I think for me, I need to prove that I can, not being told that I can't.
Yes, love it. So take us further on the journey then, mate. So into Melbourne on the couch, going hard.
Yeah, so into Melbourne. I met on my second day there. I met someone who would become my business partner, another large influence in my life. He was running a consultancy business. He started it 2 years before I started mine, and he was actually he was a health club that I was helping manage and drive. We were using his consultancy services. He was having a monthly workshop, and they send their staff for sales training, all that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd go check it out and see what they were being taught. And we connected. We had the same methodologies when it comes to sales and business and marketing. We had the same ideals. He was a couple of years more advanced when it comes to the psychology of sales and the neurolinguistics and the behavioural sciences. So I learned a lot from there. So we connected very quickly, and 3.5, 4 months later, he said, well, come to Sydney, work with me, and I did. So I left Melbourne and started working with him in Sydney in 1998. And And then, a year and a half later, I became a shareholder in that business and got some equity into that business. It was literally him and me running the show, and we grew pretty much Australia, then Australasia, and then the world's largest coaching consultancy industry for the health and wellness industry, where we'd have consultants go into businesses, coach and consult, and teach business owners in the fitness industry who are very fitness savvy but not business savvy how to grow the business more effectively.
Right.
And that's what we did. That's what I did up until that stage. And in 2000, that was from 98 to 2005. And then we launched we co-founded Australia's first national sales academy. So like somewhere to go to get a sales education.
Yeah.
And that was really, really powerful. So we did that in 2005 until 2012. And then I found, again, I was stifled in my growth. He was 10 years older than me. I'm not a spring chicken now. I'm 47, turning 48. But back then, things just weren't working as fast as I thought it could be. So I was going to move out and do my own thing. And I'd met Jack Delosa, who's the founder of the Entourage. I met him in 2005 when he was 18, and he actually worked with me. He worked for me at the National Sales Academy. He's one of these people that is a rapid learner, probably the most rapid learner I've ever met in my whole life, and he wanted to master sales. So he worked with us for 12 months there before he went off and started setting up his own businesses, and he did that very successfully. And we kept contacts, and I did some coaching consulting for him as he was growing his businesses. He hit his first kind of 7-figure profit business at a very young age with MBE education, teaching people how to buy businesses, sell businesses, capital raising, all that type of stuff. And then he started the Entourage in 2010, and he asked, we were sitting with me, my wife and Jack on our lounge on Christmas Eve in 2012, and he kind of said, what do you think the vision is for the Entourage? And I gave him my opinion. It was almost word for word aligned with his, and he said, well, let's do this together. Why don't you come on board and drive it as a CEO? And, I was general manager and shareholder of the other business that I had. And he said, let's do this together. So I became a shareholder in the Entourage, started as the early CEO, and we grew from 3 or 4 people very quickly that year to about 15 to 18. Then we grew to 50. And it's kind of for the last 7 years or so, it's been a rapid growth to where we are today, leading the way in helping people grow amazing businesses. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest version of the second half of when I left Perth and moved to the eastern states.
Yeah, no, awesome, mate. And I guess from personal experience here, when we started our most recent business, Know-How, we were fortunate enough. I've got to say, I reluctantly came along to a session that you ran in Adelaide. I've always been a little bit suspect on some of these exercises, but it was you that I really warmed to, Pete, and you just had this way of making it feel like you were talking to me directly. There was hundreds of people in the room, but I just resonated with everything that you said, and we loved our journey with the Entourage, the community that you created, just the positivity and the can-do. Let's get it done and shoot for the moon and go big and go hard is just an awesome culture that you've created both in the business and everyone that associates with you, mate. So love how you've done that. And I guess what I'm...
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that having listened to what you've just said, clearly impatient and very ambitious. And because you obviously get to a plateau and they go, right, what's next? Where to from here? What's the next step? Let's jump high and jump hard.
I just have a philosophy that if you don't like where you are, be the best at it.
Yeah.
Like if you're a garbo, or if you're a window cleaner, or if you're an accountant, or you work at a bank, or if you're a general manager, or you're a CMO, a CFO, a CTO, a CIO, and you want to get to CEO, whatever level you want to get to, the only way to get to where you want to be the best at where you are, because someone will headhunt you, will find you, you'll create your next path. Like one thing I'm probably most proud of is I've never gone for a job interview, I've never had a resume. Yeah. My next step has always just happened. Even at the beginning when I went for the interview, it was to find information for my girlfriend at the time, and they just gave me a job. Everything's just, I think when you only get obstacles in life when you're moving forward. So if you're finding challenging times, it's because you're moving forward. If you're standing still, nothing's going to hit you, you're not going to walk into anything, so you're sitting in this comfort bubble. So I think when I've always walked forward and challenged status quo and challenged where I was and challenged what I was doing and the way things were done, then you stand out and you create the solution quicker. And if you fail, then guess what? By failure, you find out the right answer quicker, so you get to the answer quicker. So for me, it's like, if you don't like where you are, be the best at it, because that's the best way to get out of it. And I think that's kind of one of the key philosophies of, I think that if I look back and look at when I've had a big leap in success in my life, that's kind of been one of the contributing factors.
Love that. Now, mate, just looking at the sort of recent manoeuvres, because you've sort of risen very quickly through the ranks from local to national to global and right up to the CEO ranks. And most people would allow their egos to get in the way and would struggle to move away from that. But I sense in a little bit I've heard, seen, and brief chat we had before we hit the record button, that family and lifestyle decisions have crept in, and you've managed to make an unusual transition from CEO of a leading business to take a role that still has a very pivotal and critical influence on the business, but and I'm guessing that's to allow you to head back to the home roots in Perth and scale down the time and put some energy into family, friends, and other passions. Talk us through the thinking on that and how you negotiated that, because not many people will be able to pull that off, mate.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think it all comes down to alignment and being just true to your own values. But to do that, you need to know what your values are. And most people exist in life either living through the lens of other people's values or society's values, or the expectations of others, and they don't live through the lens of their own, what they really want to be in life. And often we wake up and go, what have I done the last 20 years? I'm doing something that is expected of me, what other people want me to do, not what's my true passion. So for me, I've never had ego with a job title. Even in the National Sales Academy, we never had job titles on business cards. I think I wanted everyone in my business to be able to help you, and a job title wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
So for me, being the CEO of Entourage was just me being the leader of a movement that's going to empower people to have the best version of their life possible. And, someone had to be the driver of that vision and the executor of that, and, be responsible for targets and a P&L, so to speak. Whether that came with a C at the front of my name was kind of irrelevant. We want to empower everyone to be able to make decisions in the business. And I think one person drives a business. I think the team run a business. So when my son came along, we had some really fast growth, and we did some amazing things in a very short period of time. Like we're a fast growth company, and I love that. Like, you can tell my wife, I was working 18, 20 hours a day for the first couple of years, not out of necessity, but out of want and desire and passion. It never felt like work. Like people say, how do you distinguish work from everyday life? And I think, well, what I do is my life, so it's not work, it's just existing through life.
Yeah.
And when you find that, then it's, my wife and I, she's in business, she's one of Australia's leading sales and marketing experts you'll ever find. And, when we talk shop, it's like, it's not always about turning off, because we just love talking about shop. There are times where we don't, but it's not a curse for us to do that. So I think for me, it was like my son Braxton was born, and being a fast growth business, I knew the best thing for the business was to have someone that could still commit to those long hours, the passion we have, and family is my number one value. So for me, it's like I didn't want to be not be able to take my son to school or pick him up. I didn't want to be not be there for a school assembly or be there for a sporting event because I was in business. And, I didn't want to be some of the things my parents were, and they've taught me a lot. So for me, it was, we built a very strong executive team. We had a very strong board. And I knew the business to get to, I'd never run a $100 million company. We got the business to a mid 8-figure business. And for me to step up to be that, I would have really have to stretch and challenge and grow again. And I think if you don't consistently grow, you go backwards.
Yeah.
And, my commitment to wanting to be with family as opposed to the growth CEO we needed was there's a misalignment there. So I think you set things up for things to happen the right way. So Jack stepped into the CEO role. We headhunted, we found, Tim Morris, who's the GM of Uber when they first launched in Melbourne.
Yep.
One of the most successful launches of product to market fit in Australia would be Uber, I think, in the last 5-6 years.
Yeah.
So he's come on board as our GM and running a ship in that capacity. He's got very strong strengths when it comes to operations, and I'm very good at sales, marketing, culture, leadership. He's very good at operation structure. He's the integrator as opposed to the visionary.
Yep.
So we set up a structure in a way where the business is going to be really successful, and I could spend time with family and things like that. And so I stepped into a role which I knew was something that I could add massive value to the organisation when it came to sales, marketing, management, leadership. Until the stage now where I could sit down with my wife and say, what do we want our family to look like in the future, and how does that fit? And Jack and I being best mates as well as business partners, and it was a bit of a no-brainer. It was like I said, we're looking at moving back to, we're moving back to Perth.
Yeah.
And then we just create a structure of how does that look and how does that role fit. And I think whenever you're adding value, there's always a way to make something happen.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing, right, is how can you add value? How can you make yourself more valuable? And I think investing in oneself is the best investment you can ever have, because the more you invest in yourself, the more valuable you are, then your life will work out perfectly. And when you stop investing with yourself, that's when you hit roadblocks. So it's just it's happened, very organically. I think there's a skill set and value that I can add to the business. So it wasn't a matter of I'm leaving, it's a matter of I'm just going to be based from Perth instead of Sydney. What does that look like?
Yeah.
And that looks like for me 3 days a week, because I don't want to travel once or twice a week if I was doing it full time. And we have the structure in the organisation. We have an amazing team that the business can run very well with me doing this 3 days a week.
Mate, has that always been part of the vision then, to effectively create a business that ultimately doesn't need you, and therefore you sort of progressively replace yourself and have input in those areas where you add the most value and where you're getting the most enjoyment and fulfillment from? Was that a deliberate thing, or was it just something that's happened?
I think it's been subconscious. Yeah. I think everything in life is deliberate, whether it's through your conscious or your subconscious. Yeah. You set yourself up for everything. Everything you have in your life, you deserve. You are, and I'm not going to get too detailed about illnesses and things like that, but it's more the fact, to look at where you are in life, it's like you reap what you sow. So I think for me, subconsciously, it was to be able to create something in the capacity that gave me. I think I have a skill set. I can be anywhere in the world and be comfortable financially. Yeah. Because I've invested the time over the years to be great at something. And when you can, I say to my son, because he the other day he said he wants to buy the fastest car in the world, and he wants to have $1 million before he's 21, and he's only 5. But he's like, I said, well, what type? He said, what do you want to do? He goes, I want to have a business like you. I want to, help people and change lives. And I said, well, what business idea? And so he was asking, well, how do you come up with the business idea? I said, well, you find out what problems people have, and then you find out a way to fix it. And then that's a business. So become great at helping fix other people's problems. So that's what he's thinking about now. How can he do that? And I think that's, if you can educate yourself in having an asset that can fix a problem for other people, then subconsciously I think I've built the ability to be able to do what I've done. It hasn't been conscious, because the reason I joined the Entourage is because I love what we stand for. I love what we do. I love the difference that we make. In my inbox, I'll get a thank you, and my Facebook private message, I'll get, look at a result that I've achieved, you've changed my life. Like, you get that at least once a week. Yeah. Or a card in the mail, or a gift in the mail, or something like that. And it's very humbling. So I think subconsciously, the answer would be yes. It hasn't been a conscious thing, because I love what I do and I never felt the need to do it. But subconsciously, I think yes. Yeah,
okay. And the sort of leveraging from there, clearly, I mean, you've mentioned your wife in glowing terms, and having seen her in action, you two are an absolute dynamic duo when it comes to...
I am a very lucky husband, trust me.
I think you're both made for each other, mate. Both just inspiring in the way you love and approach life. And so how important has the support of Nettie been in your success to date, do you think?
Oh, I've married a freak, and I mean that in the best way. When we first met, I was travelling 6 times a week. We were together, and she's been nothing but a pillar of support, of never whinged or complained in the amount of travelling that I've done. Knew that's what I do. Supported everything when wanting to move on and join the Entourage. Had her supporting everything. Like she's been amazing. Like she's a freak of nature. Like she had Braxton 4 weeks later. She was on stage presenting. Like, wow. And she said she wouldn't do it again. But she is a unique individual that understands. We had a very similar upbringing, and I think hers has been a bit more isolated than mine. She's been a lot more independent in an earlier age than I have. She comes from the Blue Mountains and kind of set up, working from the age of 12 and 13, and she has this do whatever it takes attitude. I've never met anyone with so much tenacity to get up and go than my wife. So she just understanding that life is about becoming the best version of yourself, not through existing. And I've never met anyone who educates themselves as much about something that they're passionate about as her. I learn a lot from her in so many aspects. So I think there's no way we would be able to do or be what we have without the partnership. That we support each other and the partnerships had with me. So I think you need something in your corner, whether it be a partner or a business partner or a colleague or a mentor, or you can't go through this world alone. It just doesn't happen. Look at any of the greats in the world, they've always had someone in their corner, whether it be business people, sports people, CEOs, like they've always had someone along their side. And I just implore anyone to find that person, obsess about it. Everyone's meetable. Everyone has breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or has to go to the airport. So either shout them lunch, shout them breakfast, shout them dinner, be their Uber driver, but there's always a way to find someone.
Yeah, absolutely agree, mate. In my own case, so very similar. You've met Sonia. We're yin and yang.
Totally.
Put the two together, and at 1 + 1 = 5. It's just been the chemistry is just brilliant, and we'd live, eat and breathe together. We're in the business together. We're pretty much 24/7, mate, and love it. And
it's so good.
It's a bit like you mentioned before. This whole concept of work-life balance makes me laugh, Pete, because the only people who need work-life balance are the ones who hate their work. If there is no balance, because you don't need balance if you're loving what you're doing. What do you think?
Absolutely, and I don't think it's work-life purpose as opposed to work-life balance.
Yeah.
If you're aligned with what you do, then it should be what you want to do. Like, I love talking sales. I love building sales processes. I go into companies and I transform their whole sales process, whether it's for a one-on-one or for a team, and help creating IP for businesses. Like, I love saying that, it's funny when I usually get introduced on stage, it's the $2 billion man. I've created over $2 billion worth of sales, either for my clients or my businesses that I've run, because the stuff, and I love getting the success stories, whether it be, Mazda doing their whole sales process, and they launched the Mazda 2, Mazda 3 in the first 4, drive the 6, 7, hitting a 36-month target in 18 months. Or when Channel 9 lost the rights to host the Olympics, and Channel 7 and Channel 10 did a joint bid, and they didn't have the eyeballs. There was a drought through regional Australia. Economic Times in 2008 wasn't that great. And Win Television, which is the regional leg of Channel 9, like, they were just struggling. It was like, so we went around for 12 months and travelled and taught them, and they broke sales records during the time when they didn't have the rights to the Olympics, where, when you have eyeballs, you can charge more for advertising. Yeah. So just those wins are just they're so empowering. So I think when you make that difference, everything shifts. Yeah,
totally agree. Now, I'm going to dig into that in a minute, but before we do, mate, I just want to come back to that lifestyle question, because it's something that I ask of everyone that we do work with, because it becomes pretty much the magnet and the compass. But describe your dream lifestyle, if you could, mate, and put some real shape around it. Your perfect day, your perfect week, your perfect month and year. Who are you with? What are you doing? Where are you doing it? Can you just paint a picture for us?
Well, that's a really good question, because I haven't done this exercise for a while. And my wife and I have invested in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of personal development programs, educational personal development. And when you talk about what's your perfect day, it's been a while since we've done that. And I think for me, my perfect day would be waking up with my wife, our son probably jumping in our bed, which is what he does regularly now anyway. And it would be doing some sort of activity, I've grown up playing activity and doing sport and having a few injuries now from those. It's kind of held that back a little bit in rehab mode, but it'd be getting up, doing some sort of activity, doing some sort of sporting activity. Right now, I love taking my son to school. I love picking him up from school. I love being, part of that. And you can see there how much it means to them more than anything. Being there and taking him to school and playing with him at school for 10 or 15 minutes and going a bit earlier and picking him up after school and playing with him a bit there. And then for me, it would be, it's hard to be specific, but empowering others in some way, shape or form, whether it be through sales processes, sales protocols, negotiation skills, leadership, but just knowing that whatever I'm doing at this time, I'm spending some time creating. I love creating stuff. I spent a whole day yesterday creating a whole new sales process for a client who flew over from Eastern States to Perth to spend a day with me here to build that. And then getting an email this morning saying how excited he was about implementing, actioning it, just getting involved in that capacity. Knowing that we're building something for the future, then spending time on the family stuff. What are we doing? How is that contributing to our next step and where we're going? Being able to, looking outside right now and overlooking the pool and the outdoor entertainment area and being able to work out from there, or just having flexibility. I think for me, life is about choice, being able to do what I want when I want to, not because I have to do it, but because I want to do it. And being maybe destination free, being where we are, but not being tied anywhere because you have the ability to do what we do anywhere. So I think choice. So it's not a clear cut perfect day, but for me, it would be something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. Well, I think you've painted a really good picture there, and it sounds a lot like your lifestyle's fairly close to that now, mate. You're sort of ticking quite a few of those boxes from what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Well, it's getting there. It's getting there. And the next big chapter for me is the balance of, building something sales specific that we want to grow to be global, just Annette and I, and what that looks like, alongside the Entourage. I do a lot of work with the Entourage, and I think I always will, but I've got a passion to build something that is very sales specific that can go global. And because I know, something, there's probably three things I've learned. One of the top three would probably be learning how to sell, how to help people get what they want and give people what they need to help them achieve what they want, and that's just what sales is. So I think there's a big need for people to learn how to negotiate, how to communicate more effectively. And I think business is better, life is better when you do that. So that's kind of the next big thing for me, I think.
Yeah, and when you say big thing, I want to have this conversation because we live in an amazing world where you can have a big business without having to have this monstrous machine that chews its head off and then you become a slave to it. Is part of your thinking, because that's very much how we've modelled our business. We've got a national reach, but we're not into creating a big machine for the sake of a big machine, because you then do have to feed that machine, and you then very much exposed to any disruptive influences. But if you can keep it tight, but still have that influence, have that impact, and have that reach. Is that what you're thinking when you talk about global sales, or are you talking about a pretty big corporate monster?
Yeah, it's good to say. I mean, often as we grow, and we're a very fast growth business, we went from 4 people very quickly within, I would say 2.5 years to a team of 90. Yeah. It was very rapid. And I think in hindsight, we threw, and I'm probably the lead problem in this as well, was we threw people at a problem. So we just kept getting more people. And we run a business right now with, probably 50, just less than 50 people, half the amount of people we had before, more efficiently, more productively, more effectively. We've got better net promoter scores. We've got better results from our members and our clients. We've got a great tight-knit culture. We get more done with less people by being smarter and more effective. So I think when I talk about global, for me it's about the global impact. And I don't think you need to have a big beast to have a global impact. I think every individual can have a really massive impact. Whether you're an intrapreneur working in an organisation or an entrepreneur running a business, what you do can affect so many. And we had a gentleman who works for PwC. He joined our program. He's been promoted up 10 times because he uses what he learned in the Entourage in his role now within PwC, and he's grown tenfold in that organisation, and the impact that he's had and the leader he's now become filters down to the people underneath him.
Of course.
So, yeah, for me, global means the reach and the difference we can make, as opposed to the size of the organisation when it comes to people or resources and things like that. And I think when you reach a lot of people, the finances take care of itself.
Yeah, I totally agree. And sort of leveraging off that thing, because you've painted an awesome picture of, what your ideal lifestyle looks like in its many facets. And I guess as a lifetime student myself of people who are successful and however they decided to define that, Pete, I've noticed that there's a difference between those who just invest in work, career, and focus on income versus those who achieve the sort of choice, flexibility and freedom that you're talking about by not only investing in business but also investing in growth assets that give them that opportunity to replace their need to work so that they then can do other things. Apart from the business, and I mean, the business has been a massive part of your story to date, but are there other growth assets that you either have or will be investing in to assist you achieve that long-term sustainable lifestyle?
Yeah, good question. And I think investment is a really powerful word, and I think it must sometimes get misconstrued because I think the investment in, as I said earlier, in oneself is probably the best investment, because from there, that's when financial investments come from. So I've dabbled in property because I have a belief in property and things like that. And when you do it for the right reasons or wrong reasons, it works very, very well. A property failure of mine really came from handing the ball over to somebody else and saying, run with it. Here's the cash, here's the money, here's the process, and then just not managing it effectively and properly. And not dotting the I's, not crossing the T's. So, I've dabbled in shares. I've invested in property. I will go back to property. I've done shares because I've had people who have been confidants that are very well skilled in shares and trust their skill sets and assets. But I won't dabble in, I obviously a lot of opportunities across my table on a regular basis. And probably predominantly for me, because of my skill set, business is probably my biggest investment when it comes to that type of growth. But I do, now Annette and I, we're sitting here in Perth and looking at what properties and where do we want to be and why and what does that look like. And so there will be an investment in that way, shape or form. And I think my network will kind of dictate. I don't have a clear investment plan. I think my network will drive and stimulate what that looks like based on the expertise that I come across. So I think my network and the contacts that I have, I'm very organic. I think the reason I've got to where I've achieved when I've ever had success is I've organically, intuitively let myself be led there through the skill sets I've achieved or through the skill sets of those around me. So for me, it will be apparent in what I do. I've invested in a couple of other businesses as well. So I think for me, it's going to be continuing to invest in myself, being aligned with networks and creating more networks and partnerships, and investing in that to lead me down the path of what do I need to do next. But my belief is, what are you best at? Invest in that. So I'm not a Warren Buffett. I'm not a property mogul. But if I find someone who I feel I trust and connect with, I'm happy to be led down that path. But what I can control is business. And that's what I know quite well. So that will always be the mainstay and the foundation moving forward, surrounding by the other facets as they grow. Yeah, no, awesome, mate. And you mentioned that property may be part of that mix. Why is that, and what's in your head? I've obviously got a big interest in that particular area, but I'm just interested in your thoughts on why that would be part of the mix and what that might look like as you currently see it. Yeah, I just think and not being an expert in property, so it's more the fact that I've had an early win and a success. I've seen, my father's had properties and he sold them, and he knows now he should never have sold the properties that he had. He didn't sell them to invest in others. He sold them because he got given a stupid price for it, which now would be worth a more stupid price, so to speak. So, you learn from the mistakes of yourself and others as well. So I think, it's just an asset that We live in a really lucky country. I think we live in one of the best countries in the world, and I think by having the ability to have some of that in your portfolio is just going to enhance your future wealth. For all the historical reasons and all the future reasons, and there's plenty of land in Australia, but also great land in great areas is what people are fighting for now, and they're wanting more of it. So if you can get a piece of it now, I think people are always going to want it in some way, shape, or form. And I think just for those very bare, basic reasons, I think it just makes common sense more than anything.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, mate. Totally agree. It's an emotionally driven asset that people have got to live in it, so there's always going to be demand if you're smart about how you do it.
100%, right. Totally. And I've had success in the early days. It's worked for me. Yeah. So you do it right, it just works. It just matter if you've got a surround yourself with people who can guide you through how to do it right. Yeah. And again, it's just all about surrounding yourself with people who know the things that you don't know. Yeah. You need to have them in your life. It's not an option anymore. It must be a necessity.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, well said. Mate, now I'd really like to sort of drill into your life's passion so far, mate, because clearly, both from what you've achieved and our own personal experience, your ability to demystify and de-villainise sales, which is often perceived as a dirty, evil word in a lot of people's heads, even today, which continues to stagger me. You've got this ability to break down the mindset barriers that a lot of us have. I'd love you to just share some of the key learnings that you've picked up both personally and with some of those major organisations that you've achieved and kick some big goals for, in terms of what are the mistakes that a lot of people make, what are the key learnings you take away from it, and what are some of the things that you think if someone is going to be successful, both from a personal point of view but also in a corporate sense, how do they need to approach the whole sales exercise?
Yeah, for sure. Listen, it is. I mean, if you say sales, people. It's a four-letter word, let's be honest. If I took a pen and paper and walked out Rundle Street Mall or Pitt Street or any street throughout Australia, and I asked 100 people, excuse me, what do you think of salespeople? I mean, the most common answer is going to be, what? Pushy, sleazy, slimy, say anything, do anything just to make the sale. Like, it's going to be some sort of negative connotation, right? It's interesting, when I first started formally in sales in the health and fitness industry, I remember very, very quickly that I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I was given an A4 folder with old leads in it. My manager at the time showed me around the health club. This is the gym, this is the pool, this is the aerobics room, this is your office, here's the creche, here's the price list, here's a whole lot of old leads that I haven't been able to close for the last 6 months. Call them, call the leads with Ed next to it, and see if you can book an appointment and sell them a membership. And that was it. That was my induction. It was, I don't know if anyone out there has been in a sink or swim induction, but that was kind of me. Yeah. And I looked at this sheet and I was like, call them and say what? And I'm thinking, hang on, the manager couldn't close these people. Now they're 6 months cold, and I have to try re-engage them and cold call them, and I'm a rookie. Yeah. And I was like. And I was just, and I remember succinctly, we had the old rotary phones, where you and you dial the number, and you get that last digit felt like it was in slow motion. It was like, and then you get that 2-second click before it rings. And in my head, I was going, please don't answer. Like, it's stupid. I'm calling someone hoping for them to not answer or hoping to get their voicemail. And then, it rang, seriously, the first phone call, it rang once, and I could feel the beads of sweat dripping down from my ear, from having the phone in my ear. My palms were sweaty, and I was just like, it rang once, it went bing, bing, and I hung up. And on my call sheet, I wrote no answer. And I rang again, and it rang once, and I hung up, and I wrote no answer. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Mm. And then the next time I let it ring twice, and then I hung up again. I thought, I can't do this. This is just... And I just walked around the gym floor and started speaking to some members and asked them if they knew anyone that wanted to come in for a free workout. And then I invited someone to invite their partner.
Sorry, mate. Are you there? It's dropped out again. Sorry, buddy. You there, mate? Hello. I'm not sure what's going on here. That's weird. Can you hear me, Pete?
Yeah, that if I speak to more people, I'll get more money.
Sorry, Pete. I had a drop. You there, Pete? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, mate, I am. I can hear these beeps coming in the background. I don't know where the beeps are from.
I'm not sure what happened there, mate. Another dropout exercise there, unfortunately, mate. I'm going to get you to go back to when... I'm sorry to do this. This never happened before, actually.
No, that's all right.
We'll go back to when you were walking around. You'd sort of made the calls and then you walked out into the gym and who can I call and take it from there if we can. Sorry, mate.
Too easy. No worries. So I had enough of that. So I walked down to the gym floor and I just started speaking to members and chatting, and I invited someone to bring their partner down for a free workout. And then I just chatted to them and they came in, and after 45 minutes they said, yeah, I want to join the gym. And I went, sure, no worries. And I thought that was pretty easy. And what I realised, if I just speak to people, they would give me money. I remember my first, the phone would ring in my desk and the receptionist at the front desk said, oh, you have a walk-in here, wants to know about memberships. And I went, oh, cool, what's their name? And they said, oh, I didn't get their name. I went, no, you did. You said it was like walk or W something. You have a walk-in inquiry. Like I didn't even know what a walk-in inquiry was. I thought that was their name. And they said, no, you've got someone who's walked in who wants to know about prices. Can you come down to reception? I went, sure. And I remember we chatted and we just talked about her and life. And then at the end, she's like, listen, we've been here. I've got to go. How much is it to join? I said, oh, it's this much. I went, okay, no worries, and gave me a credit card. And I was like, and I realised very quickly that I had to start replicating what I was doing. So I literally got a notebook out, like an A4 notepad.
Yeah.
And I drew a line down the middle and I debriefed every single presentation I did. I wrote down what worked and what didn't. And whatever worked, I did again. What didn't work, I stopped doing. And I did it after every presentation until I started creating a system and a process for doing stuff. And very quickly, that Friday after my first week, I sold 26 memberships in a day.
Wow. Which
was a record for the company at that time. And I was commission only, so there was no base wage. This job was a commission only job. I got paid $20 a sale. So if I didn't sell, I didn't eat.
Yeah.
And, on average, you'd sell maybe 3 to 4 memberships a day at the most. So you'd be making $80 a day at the very, very most. And that day I sold 26 memberships. I made $520 worth of commission in one day. And that was like and I also got I sold a year's worth of personal training. They didn't have a year's package. They had a 30-session pack for $1,500. But I literally said to someone, you need to train 3 days a week with a trainer. And I said, okay, so that's 52 sessions, 52 weeks in a year. That's 156 sessions. So I just made up a pack for $5,000. And I sold it, and they paid for it. And I was like, and I got paid 10% commissions on personal training. So rather than getting $150 for a $1,500 30-pack, I got a $500 bonus for that.
Nice.
So I made over $1,000 commission in one day, and that's when I thought, hang on, this is like 2 weeks worth of work for a normal job in one day.
Yeah.
I need to systemize this baby and make sure I know how to do it very, very well. And then that's when I did. And when I became a manager, I was a very poor manager, Bushy. I was horrible. And when I say I was horrible, it's because I used to do everything. Like if we were behind in sales target, I would take the leads, I would make the sale, and I would give it to my salespeople as commission because I knew I could make the sale. I would clean the pool, I'd fix the microphone, and on the aerobics microphone, I'd pick up the weights. I did everything, right? I was very poor. I wasn't enabling my team to be better. I just knew if I did it, I'd do it right.
Yeah.
Until I went to Sydney for a holiday to visit a mate of mine, and while I was away, the sales figures dropped. They plummeted. And you know what? I was happy because it meant I was needed.
Mm.
And that's when ego kicked in, right? And I visualised going back to Perth, going to the health club with the red carpet. It's like the knight in shining armour on his white horse rides in to save the day. And, Pete's back. Thank God he's back. And I went to the club early in the morning at 7 o'clock, and I had a meeting with the team at 8, and I had croissants and juice, and I had a morning breakfast meeting set up, and I had a strategy in place for marketing, a sales training session for my team. And the sales director rang me at 7:30 in the morning. He goes, hey, Pete, how's your holiday? I went, good. He goes, figures were bad. Why are you away? I said, it's okay, Sean, don't worry about it. I'm back. I've got a plan. He goes, well, I'm around the corner. I'll pop into the gym and we'll have a chat. I said, no worries. He came into the gym and we chatted. He goes, so what happened while you're away? I said, Sean, don't worry about it. I've got a meeting coming up in about 20 minutes' time at 8 o'clock. I've got a marketing plan set up. We're going to smash target this week, don't we? He goes, that's cool, but what happened last week? I said, don't worry about it. I'm back. He goes, I know you're back. But what happened? I said, it doesn't matter. I'm going to fix it. He goes, no, you don't get it. He goes, I can't approve any more leave for you and I can't promote you. And that was the first kick in the guts I've ever had. And I went, he goes, I can't promote you because if I promote you, no one else is going to run this club like you did because it's reliant on you to have success. I can't approve any more leave. Can you go and leave? I'll lose money.
Yeah.
And that's when I realised I had to get all those books that I'd created for a system that I knew how to do. I hadn't trained my team how to do it.
Yeah.
So I systemised the whole sales process. And what I realised very quickly is I was very good for a reason. And then I started studying human psychology, human brain, neurolinguistics, behavioural styles. And I figured the better I can understand a human being, the better salesperson I can be, the better marketer I can be, the better customer service person I can be, the better...
Sorry, mate, you there?
Understand.
Sorry, mate, it's bloody well dropped out again. You there, buddy? Hello, Pete. Sorry, Pete. I'm not sure what's going on here. It keeps dropping out, mate. You there? Hello?
How's that? Can you hear me now?
No, now we're back again. Bloody frustrating.
No, am I back?
Today.
Sorry, mate. I don't know.
No, I'm not sure what's going on there, mate, but we'll go back to... It started to go...
Where were we?
Yeah, it started to go fuzzy just after the manager came back and said, I can't promote you, I can't approve leave, so we might just rerun over that if we can.
Cool.
Sorry, buddy.
Yep, no, too easy. So I learned I got the biggest kick in the guts I've ever had because I had to realise that this is not the way to run a business. So I got all those exercise books that I had that I written down what worked, that I had it in my head for me, but I hadn't imparted that knowledge to anyone else. So I quickly systemised what I did. And I realised then I started studying things like human psychology, the human brain, how people make decisions, behavioural styles, because I figured the better I understand a human being, the better I could be as a salesperson. The better I understand a human being, the better marketer I could be, the better I could be a customer service, the better brother, son, husband, father I could be. I think the better human being I can be, the better I can understand people. So that's kind of what I've obsessed about for the last 26 years is learning to understand how people make decisions in life. And I created a sales process that goes with the flow of the brain because I think pushy sales is when you swim against the current. Like you swim against the current, you're going to drown. So if you swim with it and across it, you'll swim through the current. So I figured out how you make one of the biggest buying decisions a human being will ever make is to buy their own home. The average Australian, right?
Yeah.
Could be $500,000, could be $1 million, whatever it is. The wiring in your brain to make that decision is the same wiring you make when you wake up to decide what am I going to wear today. Like the smallest decisions in our mind are usually made the same as our biggest decisions in our mind. So I sat there and thought, if I can understand how the human brain makes a decision and build a sales process around that, it won't feel like sales. So that's what I ended up doing. And over time, I've now created a model where it's very simplistic and it's very easy. And the little philosophy is you start with how are you positioned in that conversation? You need to have massive awareness of how is your consumer perceiving who you are. Yeah. If it's in a negotiation, what's their standpoint? So what's the perception here? And what I'm fighting for is to create some sort of emotional connection with them as early as I can. And then I've realised that everybody has a level of buyer's resistance. Everybody.
Yeah. Unless
you walk into a business, say a sunglass shop, and you say, hi, here's my credit card. I want a pair of these Oakleys, Ray-Bans, Versace's, Pradas, whatever they are. That's no buyer's resistance. Otherwise, let me ask you this question. You ever been to a retail shop before?
Absolutely.
You walk into the retail shop, what's the first thing they say to you? Can I?
Oh, I cut them off, mate. I'm one of those people who said...
Can I help you?
Yeah, I say, no, I'll come and see you when I'm ready, but I'm okay. Thanks for your attention. So I'm one of those... I'm probably a nightmare buyer, actually, Pete, because I don't want them in my face.
If I say, can I help you? Most people go, no, thanks, I'm just looking, or I'm just browsing, or someone like you would be very forceful and say, can I? And you'll even cut me off and go, hey, if I need anything, I know where to find you, right? But why when someone says, can I help you, do we say, no, thanks, I'm just looking and just browsing, right? Because you have a level of buyer's resistance. Yeah. You don't want to be sold to, you don't want to be pushed into anything.
Yeah.
So this is the problem, right? So with buyer's resistance, the opposite of that is buyer's acceptance. And we think, and this is where sales has gone massively wrong, and why it's been perceived as pushy and salesy. And, you know, when you look at a car salesman, you think, you know, second-hand car salesman, you don't want that approach, because what they're doing is going against the flow of the brain. So the opposite to buyer's resistance is buyer's acceptance. And what we are trained and taught to do is try to win people over, right? So we're trying to gain buyer's acceptance. But really, it's like having your foot on the foot brake, your hand on the handbrake, the car's in park, and then you put your foot on the accelerator. Now, it's going to make a lot of noise, and the revs are going to redline, and eventually the engine will blow. Now, we blow a lot of sales because we're too busy trying to win people over, where the first thing you need to do is lower buyer's resistance. I'm going to take my foot off the foot brake, hand off the handbrake, put the car in drive, and only then do I have permission to gain buyer's acceptance. So I'm fighting for how am I positioned in the marketplace to create an emotional connection with them. Then what do I need to do to lower their resistance levels before I try to win them over? Once I've lowered the resistance, I have this word called permission to gain buyer's acceptance. So it's creating this flow in the sales process.
Yeah.
And now in the digital world, now we've got to do this in the online marketplace as well, through websites and landing pages and things like that. If you're going for an interview, if you're negotiating, it's like, how am I positioned in this negotiation? What do I need to do? What are the resistance barriers? What are the levels there? What do I need to reduce those first before I have permission to talk about how I can help them? So if I succinctly do that, what we need to do right now is don't try to present your solution too early. It's the biggest mistake we make in negotiations, in sales, is we try to position ourselves way, way too early.
Yeah.
Right? We need to make sure that our product, our service, our point of difference, the idea, the concept that we're trying to get across, right, we don't lead with it. It's interesting, right? Flying 6 days a week, you sit on an aeroplane, and the most common question is, are you flying for work or business? For work or personal? Work. What do you do for work? That's the common conversation I used to have on an aeroplane.
Yeah.
And you hear people's little 5-second commercials is what I call them. In America they call them your elevator pitch. And I used to get so much business from just flying, because I created a way to engage people where they wanted me. So, if I want to give you as a learning for those that are listening right now, the goal for you is to create what I call a buying mindset in your consumer, not a selling mindset in you or your team. You want your team to want what you have, not for me to have to sell to you what I have. So when someone said to me, Pete, what do you do? I would create something that forces them to want to know more. So it might be something like, I help small and medium business owners maximize their income potential and show them how to make more money. And the most common answer there is, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And then I would say, and I wouldn't talk about me. I'd say, the best way to explain that, Bushy, is like, what do you do? And they'd say, I'm in finance. I said, okay, great. And I'd say, do you have too many customers bashing down your door? And they go, no. I said, is 90% of your business referral based, where you can control the amount of leads that are high quality? No, they're not. And I said, is your average dollar per sale, is it maximized, or could you sell more to current clients that you have? Because, when you increase your average dollar per sale, it goes straight to your bottom line in profit. And they go, no, it's not. I said, that's what I do. I help people maximize their average dollar per sale, shorten their sales cycles, and how to create a replicable sales process to get more leads that can be referral based. And they go, my boss needs to speak to you. I need to speak to you. Have you got a business card? Because I didn't make it about me. I made it about them.
Yeah.
I wasn't presenting who I was. I was finding out from them, what do they have? What positioning point do they have? And I said, what I do is I fix that stuff.
Gold.
And they go, wow, that's empowering. Like if you're in an organization right now that has a sales team, whether it's negotiation or sales, it's like your biggest problem right now is probably you have a team of salespeople, not all of them are firing at the same time. Does every one of your salespeople firing at the same time? Are they all smashing budgets by 120, 150%? The answer is going to be no. And do you have a replicable sales process that you can manage to make sure you've got, a good replicable sales process has 3 things. If you want a checklist, your sales process is good if it has does these 3 things. Your conversion rates are high no matter who takes the lead or the inquiry. It's not key person dependent.
Yeah. 2,
the time it takes to make a sale is shortened. If it's 2 to 3 months, you can get it down to 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a long pipeline to sale. And 3, you consistently increase the average dollar per sale. If you can say your sales process is consistently increasing the average dollar per sale, the sales cycle is shorter, and your conversion rate is consistently high no matter who takes the inquiry, you've got a really good, robust sales process. And most people don't have that. So I asked questions around that and I said, that's what I do. I build this for businesses. I build this for people. And they go, wow, we need that. Because I'm talking about a gap that they have, not a solution of who I am and what I do and how I do it.
Yeah, yeah. It's about their needs, their emotional wants. You've spelled out, you've smacked them in the face with what their problems are by putting it into a question. So you haven't told them, you've actually put a question mark on the end of it and they've gone, shit, This guy's right on my page here and wow, he's got the solutions they're going to make happen for us.
Yeah, and if you ask people, where are you at with this? They'll tell you where their gaps are and where their problems are. The biggest problem we have, if we ever get an incoming inquiry or a lead, we go through the old rigmarole of, what's an icebreaker? And if I'm calling, say we booked an appointment, I'm speaking to you, and hey, Bushy, how are you? How's your weekend? I don't really care. I don't know you. I've never met you before. It's just an icebreaker. It's fake rapport. So if I've got a session booked with you, I would say, great, hey, it's 2:00. Are you ready to go with that session? And they go, yep. Often not building fake rapport is actually building rapport, because rapport is a feeling of mutual commonality. When you have something in common with someone. So when you don't build rapport with me, it's actually building rapport. Because in my head, I'm going, I like this guy. There's no BS. He's straight to the point. There's none of this, stuff that I know he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then the second line is very succinct. It's like, hey, before we start, what made you reach out? Why'd you reach out for this session, for this call? And they'll openly tell you. So it's position yourself, lower their buyer's resistance, uncover their buying motivators. You need to get them to uncover their buying motivators. Then and only then do you provide a solution to that problem.
Yeah.
When you provide a solution to that problem, you can then talk about the investment, the dollars and cents, and money won't make a difference. I pride myself on being the most expensive because I get the best results. And it's all about ROI. If I said to you, give me $10,000, because in 6 months I'll give you $1 million, would you find $10,000?
Yeah.
If I said, give me $1 million and I'll make you $10 million, would you find $1 million? Whether it be 10 people with $100,000, right, or 5 people with $200,000 each, whatever it is, would you go out and try to find it?
Of course you would.
Because it's not about the investment, it's the ROI, it's the return on investment. In fact, if you look at the word ROI, what's the last word?
Investment.
Because investment's the last thing somebody worries about, right? If I'm going to get a return, Mazda comes to me and they said, we're going to hit this sales target in 36 months. We don't want to be pushy, sleazy, slimy salespeople because we're selling a Mazda 2, a Mazda 3, smaller cars, first car buyers, mum, dad buying for their children, CX-7, their first four-wheel drive for mums. We want to be positioned differently as well as car salespeople. And I said, yeah, you're going to hit that target way earlier. I mean, they hit their 36-month target in 18 months because they had a way that sold to their audience that was different to everybody else.
Yeah.
They weren't seen as salespeople. Channel 9, we stopped sending proposals and they smashed sales targets. It's just changing the philosophy. So your price is insignificant if you're fixing a problem. And then, you don't overcome objections, you eliminate them. You want to find out what is the biggest challenge, bring it up. Let me give you this one golden nugget, right? If you bring up the objection, the reason why somebody doesn't buy, it's a conversation. If they bring it up, it's an objection. It's only an objection if your customer brings it up. So I'll avidly say, what stopped you from starting sooner? I want to know. When they say it, it's now a conversation that we can work through. But if I wait to the end and then ask for the business and then they say, oh, objection, now it's me trying to overcome it, it becomes a tug of war. That's old school selling. So we eliminate objection before they come up. When you present the solution and the investment, you just ask them to get started. Then you want to repeat that process with a new customer. So you want to get repeat and referral business. And that's the sales process. It's position yourself in an emotional manner, lower buyer's resistance, spend the focus on that, uncover buying motivators, then present your solution. Price will be insignificant. You've eliminated objections on the front end in your buying strategies and your solution strategies. You just ask people to get started. You don't know this. I had this book, 101 Ways to Close the Sale and Overcome Objections. Learn the first 10 by tomorrow. Right? Closing is old school, it's antiquated. Overcoming objections is old school, it's antiquated. You shouldn't need to do that. You shouldn't be getting them.
Yeah,
so that's kind of the philosophy that I have around sales.
It's gold. And I've got to say, I mean, we picked the eyes out of the time we spent with you at the Entourage, and little things like your famous 5 Ws and an H approach, for example, completely. We just implemented that, and it transformed. We termed that a strategy conversation. And so it's not a strategy because it's a strategy. We green brain
strategy. Yep.
So that it all it is, it breaks down those barriers. And that language. The other thing that I think you're really good at, Pete, is changing the thinking and the languages so that words like cold call, like icebreaker, like closing, like objection, they're all very negative terms. So that's not going to inspire your team if that's the language you're using. But if it's...
and they're very 80s and 90s, old school selling, Jordan Belfort type, pushy, say anything, do anything just to make a sale. It's just, it's gone. The consumer's far more savvy now. We live in the technology age. What the salesperson used to be and who they need to be now are two different people. Before, the salesperson used to come with all the information and knowledgeable. Now your clients come to you, they've Googled you, they've Googled your competitors, they've looked at reviews, they almost know more about you and what you do or your products and services than you do.
Yeah.
So the people are buying differently. You need to sell differently. You and your team need to be up to date with the best ways of how your consumer buys today. And that's the problem. The consumer is up here, our sales process is down here, and there's a gap.
Yeah.
So this is what I obsess with and I love doing with business owners or individuals within a business, is teaching them how to do that in an effective, integral way. As I said, to create a buying mindset in the consumer, not a selling mindset in you and your team. And then it's like, bees to honey. And it's easy. People just buy from you. Like it is ridiculously easy. What the funniest thing, I know we're getting close to the end of this now, but the funniest thing for me is the fact when people do it and they go, Pete, I just did this strategy, it worked, and they're surprised because I think someone said, what are you probably best at? And if I'm going to toot my own horn, it's making things simple for people. I think what I'm really good at is imparting a system. People go, that's really simple. But if it's simple, you'll use it. If you use it, it will work. If it works, we both win. And it just needs to be simple. I don't need to sound smart. I need you to have the win. So, it's the simplicity behind it. When you understand the human brain, it is simple. If people just go, wow, I didn't feel like I was selling, and people are going, when can I buy? How can I start? When can I start? Yeah. And that's the best gift I think I can give anybody.
Mate, I can tell you firsthand, and for everyone listening, just how impactful everything that you're talking about and the intricacies of what you bring to the table when people work with you it's transformational in relation to not only business but life, mate, because all of those approaches are quite transferable to anything that you're wanting to influence or change in your life, mate. So, mate, absolute gold. Now, I am going to jump into the ambush round because I am mindful of your generous time, mate. So I'm just going to jump through 5 quick questions that the audience loves to hear from everyone we talk to. And to kick the first one off there, what's your favourite quote and why?
My favourite quote is my quote.
Right.
If you're not training, somebody else is, and when you meet, they'll win.
Yeah.
I just believe that, Muhammad Ali once said, and I'm looking here at a poster of Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan, and he once said training should be the hardest thing you ever do. Because if training is hard, game day is easy. Yeah. He goes, fighting in the ring isn't the hardest thing to do. It's the training. It's the blood, sweat and tears. If you look at a rock band, a couple of years ago there was this show from the makers, I think, of Underbelly, did this show on In Excess. And you see In Excess, playing at Wembley Stadium in front of 80,000 people. And what you don't see is the 7 years before that playing to 2 dogs and 3 junks in a pub in Kalgoorlie in Western Australia, not allowed to play the originals, having to play covers, trying to find their sound.
Yeah.
You don't see the blood, the sweat, the tears. You only see the end result. You think they're a 15-year one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
They've been doing all that crafting that time. So for me, it's like the more you train, the better you get. The more you train, the luckier you get. I had this adage on the golf course: good players make their own luck. it's fine that the better the players always seem to get lucky at the right time. And I think it's because they've put in the blood, the sweat, the tears, they've done the research, they know what to do. So that's my favourite quote. It's that when you're not training, someone else is. When you meet, they'll win. So just train harder. No, everything's learnable. Everything's learnable.
Absolute gold, mate. And sort of semi-linked to that, what would be the top book that you'd recommend people read and why?
That's a toughie. I went through a stage where I read a book a week for a whole year because I wanted to immerse myself in education. And, we've got a bookshelf here right now. One of the most recent ones, and I'm still just about to finish it, but it'll be by Ray Dalio called Principles.
Yeah.
He talks about the principles that govern his life and his business. And I think principles, it's like scripting. Like, I don't believe in sales scripts. I have principles in sales and models and frameworks to allow your own personality to shine. Otherwise, we turn into robots. It's the same thing with life. There's certain principles that guide you to success. So I'd implore everybody to either download it and listen to it, or Ray Dalio Principles. Must read in the next 30 days.
Yeah, it's a cracker, mate. I've got it myself, and it is a awesome read. Yep, awesome. Now, this one's a bit left field, mate, but it's something that most Aussies feel like they pay too much of. So what's the top legal thing that you've done to minimise how much tax you pay?
I have an interesting philosophy of this. I think if you're paying a lot of tax, you're doing pretty well for yourself. So first thing is, like, don't get down on yourself and don't hate the man. It is what it is. Go to Monte Carlo and live somewhere else if you want to earn less tax, and be strategic that way. But I leave that to the power. I think if you're going to have shares, you need to have an accountant that has shares, because they'll know the tax breaks. If you have property, you need to be around people who understand property.
Yeah.
So you need to surround yourself by the people who know how to do the things that you have your interest in.
Yes.
If they don't, then they won't be able to maximise it for you.
Yeah.
So number one is experts. You've got to be around experts.
Yeah. It's the old elite team sport analogy that ties into a lot of the other things that you've said earlier, mate. 100% agree.
100%.
Mate, back on the investment front, what's both the worst and the best piece of investment advice that you've ever received?
The worst one, I don't know if it's advice. You could put it under this adage, it's like, trust me. You know what I mean? Because the biggest failure that I had was when I put that trust into someone else without doing my own personal due diligence. My ignorance was my biggest downfall. And in saying so, the best bit of advice, I think, when it comes to investments is invest in yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you invest in yourself, you don't make mistakes. When you invest in yourself, you'll be educated enough to make the right decision at the right time. But you just have to invest. Like, you have to invest in yourself. Like, if you're not getting better 1% today, better than we were yesterday, then you just wasted a day of your life. You just have to be. It's and maybe it's from my fitness background. Like, if I wasn't running 100 meters further, if I wasn't bench pressing 1 kilogram more, we're doing one more repetition. When I played gridiron, I played for Australia, and if I wasn't catching one more pass or throwing one more pass as the quarterback, or when I was playing soccer, if I wasn't just trying to be that one bit better than I was, then I'm going backwards. So I think your biggest investment has to be in you. Like, it's that nothing else will contribute to the success in your life more than anything else.
Yeah, gold, mate. Absolute gold. And talking about the sort of the investment success arena in more general terms, what's a personal habit that contributes to your version of success, mate?
Good question. Because there's so many. I think the first, if I combine everything, I'm doing a bit of reflection right now, actually, because 3 or 4 things popped into my head. I think move forward at all costs.
Yeah.
I think you have to be taking one step forward at all costs. And there is no plateau in business or in life anymore. You're either going forward or going backwards.
Yeah.
Because other people are catching up, your competitors are catching up. So by default, if you're plateauing, you're going backwards. So I think you need to be taking one step forward in some area of your life, whether it be financial, personal relationships, family relationships, sales, marketing, health, wellness. Like, you need to be, the habit is just doing one thing that is going to take me forward because it's a habit, right? Success is a habit. Decision making is a habit. Happiness is a skill. It's a habit. So I think the biggest thing would be is take one step forward every single day, no matter what.
Yeah, love it, mate. Absolutely love it. Brilliant. Now, just sort of closing off, and let's take the example of your son, Braxton, and you've covered off a little bit on this already, but if he's about to leave school in a few years' time and he's about to confront the big wide world, what would you advise him to invest his time, money and skills in to create his version of freedom, mate?
I think by the time he leaves school, it's too late. I think it's got to start way, and Annette and I have been doing that now. It's funny. My wife would walk Braxton to school, and she'd have this. Sometimes it's the sometimes conversation. Because sometimes in life, and she'd just educate him 24/7. And I think the biggest gift we can give him is very similar. Like, we're put on this planet to be the best version of ourselves. So it is always about do what you love and do what you're passionate about. Like, I don't know as a 15, 16-year-old how you're supposed to know what you want to be when you grow up for the rest of your life. You're supposed to put down on a bit of paper, this is what I want to do at university, and then get a score that can get you into university to study something, and you're supposed to make that decision at 16 years of age. Like, there's people now that are 30, 40, they still don't know what they want to do. So I think for him, it's like, explore as much as you can, expose yourself to as much as you can, but challenge everything. Like, don't accept what is. And I think it's the acceptance of our environment that leads to holding us back. So I just want him to be curious. I want him to question, to challenge, and I want him just to have high self-esteem, because I think when you have high self-esteem, you trust yourself to go and do things that other people, and anything that great in life has been done by people doing things that no one else thought could happen.
Yep.
Whether it's an Elon Musk or whether it's a Branson or whether it's an Oprah Winfrey, like, they've done things that people thought wasn't possible. And I would love for him to have that ability to say that anything is possible. And if it's to be, it's up to him. One of my wife's favourite sayings, if it's to be, it's up to me. Yeah. No one else will control it. No one else's fault. No one else is going to put you up there except for you. So have the courage to have a crack and just know that you're in total control. It will work out. Like, it will work out. When you invest in yourself, it will work out.
100% totally agree, mate. Pieces of gold there. Mate, bringing it to a conclusion then, you shared an enormous amount of gold with us, mate, and very appreciative you doing so. For those who want to get in touch with you to take it further, particularly around what you're doing in the sales arena, so they can both improve their personal and professional success in whatever aspect that might be, how do they go about doing that, mate?
Mate, listen, I guess there's two parts to this if you want to contact me. If you want to, if you're a business owner or you want to invest in yourself, the Entourage is a place to go, okay? And just reach out to me at Petar, Petarl, Peter L, at the-entourage.com.au.
Yep.
If you're an entrepreneur within a business and you want to get the assets and the skills of knowing what does it take to run a successful business, or you're working in a business and you're thinking, you know what, I want to go and do my own thing, you need to reach out to Entourage. And I'd love to chat to you about what we can do to help you in that capacity.
Yeah.
If you are heading up a business, if you're a C-suite, if you're in the business right now, if you do anything to do with negotiation skills, presentation skills, or anything like that, then you can reach out to me on the same email address and just tell me what you want to talk about, and I can either help decide, is your Entourage best, or do you just need me to go into your business and reconstruct a sales process, help you with a presentation, one-on-one, one-to-many. Just go to that email address. That's probably the best one right now, and say, hey, Pete, I work in a business. We have a sales team. Can you chat to you about what you can do for us in that capacity? But if you want to go and start a business, just let me know, and I can filter you either way.
Brilliant, mate. Absolutely awesome, mate. Look, I know you've got to go and catch a plane. Been awesome chatting to you, mate. I feel like we've only scratched the surface and I could talk to you all day. We'll do that.
Mate, it has. The time's gone really, really quickly. And
mate,
I do plan to catch you in an hour and 15 minutes. So we could get lost and maybe we should do a part 2 someday.
We will, mate. Travel safe. We'll talk soon. Keep up the journey, mate. Awesome.
Look forward to it. Thanks very much. Cheers, buddy. Bye.
Well, freedom fighters, how good was that? To get a summary of all this investment gold in the show notes, just email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's HELLO@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.bushymartin.com.au/get invested. I look forward to joining you next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. So thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you live forever and live as if you'll die tomorrow.